Eddie Chavez, Ruben Nava, and Jesse Romero. Jesus 911.
Jesus 911, Virgin Most Powerful Radio, two-man car. My name is Ruben Nava, my partner Jesse Romero. We make up Jesus 911 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Of course, we've got a lot going on in the world. Jesse, good morning.
Good morning, Ruben. Reporting for duty, sir. Yeah, a lot going on, Ruben. A lot going on.
Jesse, we had the men's conference this past Saturday, and I think it was well received. I know that you had some great talks on your upcoming book, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Actually, your book is out, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Ruben. It's called, here it is.
Yeah.
Atheism is the opium of the elites.
That's right.
I took that, Ruben, from who? I got it from Karl Marx.
Right.
Yeah. Remember what he said about us?
Jesse, you've been burning the candle at both ends, man. This is what, like 3 books you've written in the last year or maybe?
Yeah, in 12 months, yeah.
12 months, yeah.
Yeah, I'm tired. I'm a little bit exhausted, to be honest with you.
And then,
I'm going to take a break.
I turn on the radio, you're being asked to do interviews here and there, and I heard you on Irrelevant Radio just by chance, driving to Mass on Sunday. You were on, I forget what the host's name was, but you were talking about your book, Devil and the City of Angels. Yeah, you've been a busy man, my friend. So keep up.
You know what, Rube? I look at it this way. You and I were both former athletes. I want to leave it all out on the field before I die.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah.
I'm rounding the corner. I'm rounding third base. I want to see Jesus face to face. I want to leave it all on the field before I drop dead. I don't want to leave anything here on planet Earth.
You're not on third base, brother. You're between first and second.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So we're gonna ask. I'm gonna go ahead and ask you some questions about your book, and just gonna tell the audience what some of the responses that they could look, when they get their copy of the book, because this is definitely what's going on right now. This loss of faith. These people that are rioting out there, anarchists. They've got no sense of God. Someone who has, even if it's not Christianity, I mean, man, you wouldn't be doing this kind of stuff. If, let's say even the Buddhists, you don't see them out there tossing rocks and Molotov cocktails and stuff through windows and police cars. So we're going to get into this. And, I studied sociology at UCLA, so some of this stuff I'm familiar with, but I read like Marx's critique of Hegel's philosophy of right, and where he dismissed religion as an opiate delusion, and
that's why I called my book. It was a response to Karl Marx. He says religion is the opium of the masses, and the title of my book is Atheism is the opium of the elites.
That's right.
That's right.
Well, let's get into this, Jesse.
All right.
Why is it wrong? Why is atheism wrong?
Well, just turn on your television and you'll see why it's wrong. Because what atheism, Ruben, what it does, it gives rise to secular humanism. And so people end up living their life as if there's no God, or they don't have a soul, there's no afterlife. And St. Paul even gives a whole example of the way the rejection of God, atheism, the way in Romans chapter 1, verses 18 to 22, he says that it darkens the intellect. Your reasoning becomes vain. Your mind becomes senseless and darkened. You become like fools. So he talks about the theology of a person who rejects God after God God has revealed himself to us through natural law to everybody through natural law. And so that's essentially why atheism is wrong or wrong-headed, is that because it leads a person to live on planet Earth as if God doesn't exist, as if there's no consequences to the end of our earthly life.
So because of this belief, how's atheism affected society?
Well, it's affected our society I saw a study. It's in my book. It's 60 to 80% of Christian kids, both Catholics and Protestants, lose their faith in college. 60 to 80% of Christian kids. Okay, and why is that? Well, you got militant atheism in college, and it's inspired by people like Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, Michael Newdow, Bill Maher. These are educated men. They're 30 to 40 years older than these college students. They ridicule, they attack belief in God. They put out a barrage of books with a bunch of innuendos, insinuations. And the fact is, Christian kids in school are intimidated by their professors. And the fact is, here's also what atheism has bred in our schools. Prayer's been kicked out of public schools. And if you want to see exactly what a lot of our kids go through, I remember this myself, but it wasn't as bad in the 80s. All you got to do if you want to see how atheism has affected society, and again, it starts in the schools, just watch the movie God is Dead. Okay, there's two actually. God is Dead 1, God is Dead 2.
Good movies, yeah.
Excellent movies. Every father should be watching that with his family, with his kids, and talking about it. And then there's another one that precedes that. It's called Expelled, No Intelligence Allowed. Essentially, they're movies of liberal college professors in liberal colleges, which is basically the 90% of them, and the way they mock God and they give these pseudo-intellectual arguments to confuse our young people. And also, Ruben, a lot of pop celebrities, in the pop culture, they also mock the idea of believing in God. And so a lot of our kids that are plugged into social media, they're saying, wow, if this actor or this actress or this entertainer is mocking God, it must not be cool to believe in God.
Right. I mean, we'd hear stuff like, Max Weber, that religion was pure ideology. And then from Peter Berger, that religions were superstitious, beyond the pale of respectable discussions. And so you think these are educated people, man. They know more than I. And these kids are just like little sponges, and they're soaking this thing up.
And especially if they go back to a household that's not strong in their faith in God, not a strong practicing Catholics or Protestants, they're going to see, again, a lukewarm, kind of indifferent mom and dad to their faith and to God. And now they're getting hit with some hardcore, constant propaganda in school, starting from, this actually starts, Ruben, in middle school, man. They start them pretty young now. By the time you get to college, you're getting a double-barrel shotgun of quasi-intellectual arguments against God.
Yeah. So, Jess, how does the Catholic Church regard atheism as a real problem?
Absolutely, it does. In fact, in the Catechism, there's a very interesting paragraph that most Catholics probably have overlooked. It's in paragraph 2123, which is one of the reasons why I wrote the book. It says this, quote, "Atheism must therefore be regarded as one of the most serious problems of our time." So the Vatican II documents say that atheism in the third millennium, this is one of the most serious problems of our time. And the reason I would say that it is because if you don't believe in God, there's an old saying by philosophers, Dostoevsky, the Russian philosopher, he says, if you don't believe in God, then anything goes. And see, and the church, that's what the church is essentially saying. If you're not plugged into God, then there's basically nothing that you won't do or say. The human behavior is regulated by belief in God. It's basically tempered by belief in God. And what you're seeing, for example, turn on the television. What are you seeing? A lack of temperance.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Hey, Jess,
which means absence of God or no God, atheism. And Ruben, the word atheism, it's something that started originating around the 16th century. After Luther's break with the church, then people started taking it a step further, positing, hey, maybe there's not even a God. But where this really took off like an engine, like a turbocharged machine, was in the 18th century during the French Enlightenment attack upon the Catholic Church, the French Revolution. This is when you had intellectual thinkers, Nietzsche and Voltaire and stuff, that in the 18th century they started positing this universal, idea that there is no God. So it's relatively new. Atheism, before the 18th century, really, nobody was stupid enough in Western civilization to say that there was no God. This is something that was hatched, with a vengeance right around the 18th century, and it's full steam ahead at this point.
All right. Well, I remember reading about evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins, and he saw religion, among other things, as more negative, a crime against childhood. I think his quote was. What is evolution?
Okay, when we talk about evolution, we have to basically define our terms, because there's two types of evolution. Well, first of all, evolution means that strict definition means a process of change, formulation, or growth.
Right. Okay.
So there's micro and there's macro, and I'll break down what Catholics can believe and what Catholics cannot believe on the next day.
That's right. Maybe we can address that problem with big T-Rex. Where's that come? All right, we'll be right back. Change that dial.
This is Terry Barber. I want to thank you for supporting Virgin Most Powerful Radio. And here's an easy way to support us by going to smile.amazon.com and type in Catholic Resource Center or Virgin Most Powerful Radio. And when you log in your Amazon account and you purchase products, a portion of it will go right back in supporting Virgin Most Powerful Radio. And it doesn't cost you a dime. I want to thank you ahead of time, because that supports us year-round. May God bless you and your family.
How does the baby move in your tummy? How does the baby eat? Can the baby hear me? How did the baby get in there?
Wow, a pregnancy can sure generate a lot of questions, but what's important is that a baby is a baby, inside and out of the womb, not just after birth, but 9 months before. At conception.
That's right. Every baby is a miracle. Hello, my name is Marianne Koharski. I'm the director of Pro-Life Across America. If you know someone who is pregnant or in need of alternatives or assistance, or would like to support the work of Pro-Life Across America, please visit our website at prolifeacrossamerica.org, or better yet, simply dial pound 250 on your cell phone and say the keyword pro-life. Pro-Life Across America is non-political and totally educational.
A baby's heart is beating 18 days from conception.
Pro-life across America, the Billboard people.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow, that's 80%. realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
Now, back to Jesus 911. If this call is not an emergency, dial 888-526-2151.
Jesus 911. Two-man car. We are 10-8. Give you some Catholic intel. He's laying out some answers to the questions that a lot of people have these days. Maybe not so much our listeners, because we're preaching to the choir here, but there's people in our families, extended families, our children that are having these discussions. They're having them at school. They're having them with their friends. People who can't give them cogent answers, and so Jesse's giving us those answers now. We were just on a question you'll probably find in his book on, I think it's question number 6, what is evolution? So Jesse's breaking it down. He was about to tell us about the macro and the micro.
Ruben, I also wrote the book in a very simple way. I wrote it's 50 questions and answers. So it's like question answer. And what I did is I went to a lot of these atheist websites, and I took the most commonly asked questions by young people of these atheists, Dawkins and Hitchens. So I went right to the websites that are promoting this, and I said, okay, here are the questions that the young people are asking them. So those are the ones that I put in my book, and that I answered them with a very Catholic, a very Catholic response. Yeah. So the question. So what's evolution? Okay, evolution is essentially just a definition. Dictionary.com. If you look it up, it says any process of change, formation, or growth. Now, so what do we as Catholics believe about evolution? Well, as Catholics, we believe in microevolution. That's a fact. In fact, there's evidence for microevolution. But as Catholics, we reject macroevolution. That's not a fact. That's not proven. Let me break it down, okay? Microevolution would be something like species can change, but they don't change into another species. They remain within the species, but they can change within the species. What do I mean by that? If a German Shepherd, that's a dog, mates with a pet bull, that's another dog, we're going to have microevolution. The offspring of that, it's going to be a dog. It's not going to look fully like a German Shepherd. It's not going to look fully like a pet bull, because there's going to have been some microevolution development, because you have a German Shepherd, which is a different strain of dog, and a pit bull, a different strain of dog, but they're the same species. So that union's not going to give you an alligator or an elephant,
but it will give you
or a frog.
It will give.
It's going to give you a dog.
A dog.
It's going to look, it may not look like a pure German Shepherd or a pure pit bull, but you're going to get the same species dog. That's called microevolution. That's a fact. Catholics believe in a micro. If a black Catholic marries a Caucasian Catholic, you're going to get a human being. Okay, that's a species. What's the offspring of a human being? They may not look all black or all Caucasian, but that's microevolution. Catholics believe in that because that's a fact. Now, macroevolution, that's science fiction. That's a myth, and that's something that we don't believe at all. And so, what is macroevolution? Okay, number one, it's not a fact. There's no evidence for it. It hasn't been proven. These secular scientists, these atheist scientists, they want us to believe that throughout the course of time that there was like these small scale changes that have happened over time. And of course, they're always saying billions of years, which we can't even measure time. It's just they're just projecting their ideas out there. They say in the process of billions of years, this primordial soup, which gave us like an amoeba, which gave us a polywog, which eventually evolved into a human being. So that's macroevolution. They basically claim that through random processes, which they can never say, what do you mean random processes? What? I don't know. Random processes that, microbes can turn into a man through various stages, like, a fish, a reptile, a monkey. The fact is, Ruben, there's no evidence. It's 2020. We're still waiting for the evidence for macroevolution. There is none. It's more science fiction than science.
Yep, Jesse. And my brother-in-law, he teaches biology and physiology over at one of our local community colleges, and he's been doing that for almost 30 years. And that department has forced, and just like in just about every school, they have to teach evolution, and they're forced to whether they like it or not. And so he's a Catholic, hardcore Catholic. He teaches it with a spin. He also teaches that it's just a theory.
Yeah. So there you go.
That's the way you got to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Theory means an educated guess, and guess what? A lot of educated guesses are wrong.
That's right. Hey, going back to your thing about your micro example with the German Shepherd and the pit bull, I was just trying to say that since I have German Shepherds, and That would just mean a dog that sheds a little less, huh?
Yeah, I guess. Right. Yeah, you would know.
A German Shepherd sheds 24/7, 360 days, 365 days a year.
Ruben, let me mention something also that applies to what's happening in the streets with the riots right now with these young anarchists, these godless kids.
Yeah.
Look at, if we remove prayer from public school, remove the 10 Commandments from public school, we removed Bible reading from public schools, and so here's kind of where we're kind of upside down in our society. We take away the Bible from our young people, but now they get busted. They go to prison. What's the first thing that they do in prison at the intake center? Give them Bibles. Are you kidding me? You got a 30, 40-year-old hardened criminal that God has been removed from all vestiges of American life, and he followed the natural processes of his darkened intellect, and he became a monster, because that's what happens. That's what happens without God. We have this beast-like tendency, and now, after they've committed all these heinous crimes, oh, by the way, you're in the intake center in Chino, here's the Bible. Are you kidding me? He needed that Bible 40 years ago. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm glad that they give him a Bible and stuff, but see the inversion there? Yeah. Our government kind of realizes, hey, maybe this monster here needs a Bible to start reading about God. But yet, this same government also has decreed that you can't have Bibles when your kids in elementary school and in public school.
I'm surprised the lefties haven't stopped that practice either, Maybe if Pelosi found out, and she'd do it.
Well, we'll keep it quiet. Don't say nothing, because that's what I've heard from guys that have been they tell me, hey, they give you a Bible, man, right in reception center.
Right. So, half of them come out, maybe half of them, maybe if that high, they come out changed. I know a lot of people who have conversion stories in there, but
oh yeah,
but a lot of them come out just they find God in there just while they're in there, and then come back out, and it's just sometimes it's just a way to get out of their cells to get to a Bible study or church service.
Yeah, that's true.
So Jesse, why can't atheists be right and believers be right at the same time?
It's simple. It's there's a Thomistic principle here. It's called the principle of non-contradiction. So St. Thomas doesn't allow for two things that are incompatible to be right at the same time. In other words, St. Thomas would say a thing cannot be and not be at the same time. So to make it simple, in other words, what St. Thomas is saying, either there is a God or there is no God, but both statements can't be true at the same time. Mm-hmm. Pretty simple.
That's right. And, Jesus came, he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So the truth is a person. It's not a concept. It's a person. So
amen. And Ruben, also the famous German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, he's the one that gave. He's the one that basically started giving, putting fuel into the whole atheism movement when he wrote, when he wrote "God is dead." I mean, this is something that this movement has taken Nietzsche's philosophy, and they're just trying to basically ram it down our throats, and they're trying to live it out. That's what we're seeing right now in the streets out there. You're seeing a movement of kids that believe that God is dead, essentially. But right now, Nietzsche, he knows something that metaphysically, he knows that he was wrong, because Nietzsche's dead. God's not dead. God's not even tired. And Nietzsche knows that right now.
That's right. That's right. So what's the root cause of atheism, Jesse?
I'm going to go to a Catholic thinker who really thought a lot about this topic, Venerable Fulton Sheen. And he says that the essential root cause of atheism, he says, it's humility. That's what he says. He says, quote, humility is required to seek and to encounter the face of God. He says, humility is always the condition of discovering divinity. And it makes sense, Ruben, to say that there's somebody greater than I, somebody, there's something bigger than me, something that I have to bend my knee to. Then it's funny, but even these young anarchists out there, they kind of realize there's this kind of divine component to their anarchy. What do I mean by that? I think the liturgy stamped and the notion of God is stamped in every human heart. You see a lot of these kids are saying, okay, everybody's got to bend their knee to Black Lives Matter. Ruben, that's liturgical. Everybody has to give us money. Everybody's got to, if you're white, you got to give us $10 for reparation. Ruben, that's liturgical, an offering. Everybody got to get on your knee, and you got to confess your sins of white privilege. Ruben, no. See, God is stamped into the nature of our being so much that you even have the anarchists from Black Lives Matter that are using liturgical concepts. They're making people humble themselves. Get on your knees. That's a liturgical posture.
Wow.
Say, make a confession to us that you're racist and that you've got white privilege. Take money out of your pocket. Give us an offering. Ruben, do you see the way it's stamped into the very nature to worship God? And I would even go so far as another root cause of atheism, St. Paul would say, is there's this intellectual blindness. The devil in some way, shape, or form causes spiritual blindness. Just kind of just darkens the senses, darkens the intellect. And I think the way the devil uses this, I mean, just because we see it in the life of Lucifer, when pride, when you don't check your pride, you know what I'm saying? When your pride, it basically becomes the essence of who you are. Pride and ego, that's the diabolical. That's the opposite of God. That's the opposite of the virtues of humility and charity, which is the godly virtues which you need to bend your knee and accept God.
Yep. Pride comes before the fall, Jess.
Yes.
So, I remember reading some research by psychology professor Abraham Harold Maslow, and he said that, he examined, people's mystical beliefs and mystical experiences, and he said that the origins of global beliefs, that he found that although people's beliefs are different, they seem to originate from the same place. So what does the Holy Bible say about atheism, Jess?
Wow. The Holy Bible says in Psalm 14, verse 1, the fool says in his heart, there is no God. Ruben, atheism is a problem of the heart, not a problem of the head.
Amen. And we're going to pick that up on the other side of the break. You don't want to miss the rest of this. Jesse's he's on the stand right now. Be right back.
Hi, this is Jesse Romero from the Terry and Jesse Show, also from Jesus 911. Let's face it, we all need to use the internet, but we need screen accountability. Why? Pornography is a huge problem, especially on the internet. And every time we tap into the internet, we get bombarded with images and temptations that degrade our humanity. So we need Covenant Eyes to block these pornographic sites and advertisements from infiltrating our lives. Covenant Eyes helps us take custody of our eyes and custody of our intellect. So I recommend you go to covenanteyes.com and type in the promo code VMPR to support the network. Protect yourself and your family from the imminent threats on the internet. www.covenanteyes.com, code VMPR, live porn free. Thank you for listening to Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Thank you. God bless you. Keep the faith.
Healthcare news today seems to be coming from everywhere and everyone. It's confusing at least and untrustworthy at the worst. Dr. Aceta is a faithful Catholic in the Kern County community. He is trustworthy, well-researched, and will only give expert opinion on matters in his own specialty. Catholic teaching at its entirety is of utmost importance to Dr. Aceta. Give Dr. Aceta a call for your obstetrics and gynecological needs at 661-695-6617.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow, that's 80%. realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
Now, back to Jesus 911. If this call is not an emergency, dial 888-526-2151.
We're back, Jesus 911. We're talking about Jesse's new book. The Atheism is the Opium of the Elites. And as those of you who don't know what opium is, that's from the poppy seed plant, right? That's where we get heroin and morphine. And
It's the drug, in other words. That's what I was saying.
yeah.
It's a drug. That's what it is.
Yep.
Ruben, let me mention also what I was talking about. You said, what does the Bible say about atheism? Psalm 14, verse 1, very powerful. The fool says in his heart there's no God, which essentially means this, that atheism is a problem of the heart. Fulton Sheen says that, Venerable Sheen, he says, it's a problem of the heart, not the head. It's because the heart of an atheist does not wish there to be a God because, why? And I've talked to atheists. They'll say, man, Jess, if there's a God, that means I'm under obligation to follow God's will, which is the 10 Commandments. And so if I reject the proposition of God, I'm not obligated to follow anything. I can basically run my own affairs and do my own thing. And so really when you talk to an atheist, a heart-to-heart talk with them, their arguments aren't intellectual, Ruben. They're shallow. Their arguments are, it's their will. Their will does not want to conform to what God says, and like for example, the 10 Commandments, because again, they know that there has to be a change of life. And St. Paul says it in one verse in Romans 1:18. He says this, for the wrath of God, the word wrath means anger, okay? For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and wickedness of men, who by their wickedness suppress the truth. There it is, those last 5 words. By their wickedness suppress the truth. Why do people not believe in God? Because they're wicked.
A lot of these kids out here, Jessa, they're really, well, these Antifa, the anarchists, they're out there without any sense of, we know in our hearts that we have the natural law has been put in all our hearts, but they're out there. Some of them think that, actually maybe most of them, Jesus was a revolutionary leader, right?
Yeah, because they've bought into all the Protestant and Catholic liberation theology. So yeah, Jesus is not the savior of the world. He's the liberator, the revolutionary. And they even have posters showing that Jesus dressed like Che Guevara with a rifle in his hand.
Yeah. They think that, well, he thought highly of women as equals, but he didn't like commercial activity and didn't like the rich could be authentic. They didn't think, they think that the rich can't be authentic and absolute hatred for the wealthy local elites. But it's funny that those people, the people they're following, the liberals, there's many, all the, those people in Congress, a lot of money in there, and they try to.
Ruben, there's the liberal Democrats are the richest people in the United States. All you have to do is just take a look in the internet, go on a search engine, and type in who are the wealthiest people in the world in the U.S. and you'll find. I mean, I in my chapter Knocked Off the Donkey, I have a chapter on that. Oprah Winfrey, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, George Soros. It goes Ted Turner. It goes on. They're all Democrats.
Wow.
Michael Bloomberg. The only one that's on the list of billionaires that's not a Democrat is President Trump.
Yeah.
Of the billionaires club in the when I did the research, out of like the top 12 billionaires in the U.S., 11 are Democrats, 1 is a Republican.
Wow.
So much for the myth of like, oh yeah, the Republicans are the party of the rich. Are you kidding me? And Ruben, you look at most corporations, big corporations, they donate to Democrat causes.
Exactly. Procter and Gamble,
Google, Yahoo, Apple,
Amazon.
I mean, are you kidding?
Yeah.
If you say anything against LGBT, these people will stop, being your sponsor and stuff. Are you kidding me? That The Republicans are the party of the rich. What planet are you living in?
And that's a main talking point for them. Jeez.
And it's completely false, Ruben. Again, it's just the diabolical deception.
Yep. Anyway, let's go back to your book, Jess.
Yeah.
So was atheism predicted as a curse upon mankind by the Blessed Virgin Mary?
Oh, that's a good question, Ruben, because I think that's the basis. This is the reason why I wrote the book. Because our Blessed Mother, Our Lady of Fatima, she warned us about the spread of atheism back in 1917.
Mm-hmm.
And she warned us that the errors of Russia are going to spread even here in America if we don't, for us as lay Catholics, follow the Fatima program. The 5 first Saturdays, pray the rosary every day, live in a state of grace. And the popes were given an additional homework themselves to consecrate Russia to Our Lady specifically by name. Well, guess what, Ruben? Both of us have failed, okay? The bishops of Rome, the popes,
one pope
have
after
not
another.
done the consecration as per directed. Yes, they have done consecrations of the whole world to Our Lady, but that's not what she asked for. She asked specifically for Russia to be consecrated. No pope has done that since the request has been made by name. And that's the Matthew 7:7 principle, ask and you'll receive. When Our Lady or our Lord Jesus Christ asks something, you have to follow exactly what they say. You can't modify it. And on our part, Ruben, most Catholics don't pray the daily rosary. Most Catholics have never have done the 5 first Saturdays in a state of grace and received Holy Communion in their life. And so there's been a failure by the church at large. And so what do we have here? Well, the communist revolution took place in 1917. And what did they start promoting? The Soviet Union. And just like Our Lady predicted, they started promoting atheism. They started promoting this abortion, the dismantling of the family, abolish private property. In fact, communist Russia was the first modern government to openly promote abortion. And again, the promotion of atheism throughout the world. There is no God. Again, the abolition of private property. And what do we have here? This is called socialism. What are these anarchists right now in the streets trying to promote in this country? They're trying to topple the present order. And what are they trying to promote? Socialism. That's the era of Russia that has spread fast. It's here now. And this is a curse upon mankind that was predicted by Our Lady of Fatima. And this curse is militant atheism.
Just, that's our leaders of the church. They have been trying to just wipe Fatima out of our mind. You seldom hear them talk about it. Most churches don't even have the devotion to the first 5 Saturdays. And you talk about the Catholics today in the typical Novus Ordo parish have no clue when you say that to them. What are you
talking about?
Yeah. Devotion to her Immaculate Heart? What? So yeah, it's a shame.
You're right, Ruben.
And so when the church, what was it, like maybe 2002 or thereabouts, where they said that they released the third secret, and so it was pretty much met when Pope John Paul II got shot. That kind of settled it for us. And a lot of people thought, hey, there's more to it than this. And
well, yeah, now we have a lot of cardinals that are saying there definitely is more to this. That wasn't you have cardinals and bishops saying this now. What people were saying 30 years ago, they're saying, you're nuts, you're a trad, you're crazy, you're a right-winger. Now you got mainstream bishops and cardinals saying what you're just saying right now, Ruben, that the full secret contains more.
Because, I remember talking to friends back then, and they were like, no, man, they just told us that they released the third secret, and that's it. It's done,
Yeah, I know. And I was probably in that camp too, Ruben. I was drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, thinking.
Yeah, I think I was in that camp, to be honest with you. Mea culpa.
Well, you red pill, Jesse. That good for you. All right, Jess. So
because I've been hanging around with you too long, and that's why. You've made read additional things that I didn't want to read.
Yeah, well, I had a power of association. I had some people in my corner that were telling me the right things. So how does science and religion relate to one another? Yes.
Now, scientists and the atheists, they say, they're incompatible. Not true. Because here's a Catholic principle. It comes from the Middle Ages, that all truth comes from God. God's the source of truth. So whether it's scientific truth or religious truth or historical or oceanography or archaeology, all that is true comes from God. So that's first principle number one of Catholicism. And the second thing that we would say is Catholicism has always had, it's always had this notion about faith and reason. And St. John Paul II, he quotes some of the fathers of the church. He says that faith and reason are like two wings of a bird. Both are needed to fly straight. They complement one another. So as Catholics, John Paul II, he also says, science can purify religion from error and superstition. Religion can purify science from idolatry and false absolutes. Each can draw the other into a wider world, a world with both can flourish. Well, why did he say that? Because both come from God. Religious truth and scientific truth both come from God. God's a source of both, so they're compatible. Again, they're like two wings of a bird.
Yep, and unfortunately, our kids aren't hearing that in school, and
not even in Catholic schools, Ruben.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to. No,
yeah. Okay.
Just kidding.
Got it.
No, that's true. They're taught to question everything,
Well, Ruben, the Marxists knew, the communists knew that in order for them to subvert Catholicism and to try to give a new religion and to dumb it down and to modernize it, they had to take over our Catholic schools, and they've been doing that quite successfully. It's a full court press now. There's very few Catholic schools in our country that teach authentic Catholicism.
Right. And part of the, because they're not vetting some of the teachers. They're not holding them to the fire. They're not having to read that oath, take that oath of modernism. And so when you do that, when you're not doing that, I should say that these people are out there teaching whatever they feel,
That's right.
They're not following the practices of the faith. And sometimes you hear about them getting fired, and then they're, wait a minute.
Like Tim Gordon.
Yeah. Yep.
Facing in point, puts out a true statement about an organization that's promoting Marxism, Black Lives Matter, and what happens? He gets fired from a Catholic school for telling the truth.
Yep. Well, when God closes one door, he opens another.
Amen. He will.
Be right back.
Help the Helpless, a Minnesota St. Paul nonprofit organization chaired by Father of Tear and volunteers, is humbly asking you for your kind support to help the poor and the handicapped children in India and Ecuador. Through financial support from the Help of the Helpless benefactors, the children are provided with clothing, food, education, shelter, and the teachings of the Catholic Church. The mission is to help children thrive and become self-sufficient young adults leading productive lives. We also provide aid to poor families in Ecuador with food baskets, medicines, medical assistance, and help with funeral needs for the deceased. The work in India is done by Father Antonio's organization, St. Mary's. In Ecuador, the work is being done by the Servant Sisters of the Home of Mother. You can call us at 877-762-8857. To learn more, please visit our website, www.helpthehelpless.org. God bless you.
Hebrews 11:3 says, "By faith we come to understand." According to St. Augustine, understanding is the reward of faith. Therefore, seek not to understand that you may believe, but believe that you may understand. May God grant us a strong living faith in Him and His divine plan of salvation, and help us to believe so that we may understand.
Buying buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow, that's 80%. realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
Now, back to Jesus 911. If this call is not an emergency, dial 888-526-2151.
Jesus 911, Virgin Most Powerful Radio, where iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another. And Jesse is definitely sharpening us up today with some responses from his book. His new book, Atheism is the Opium of the Elites. Jesse, where can people get your book?
You can get it at my website, jesseromero.com, jesseromero.com. Here it is, Atheism, the Opium of the Elites. Go to my website, jesseromero.com. It's the 50 questions and answers. I make it very understandable. It's a quick read. It'll probably take you about an hour and a half to read it. But I go through all the most common questions asked by millennials that are confused on this topic. Ruben, a bit of good news. I'm just looking. Somebody just sent me a video on my phone. There's a Georgia cop on duty, and he's there at a Black Lives Matters anarchist protesters, and they're yelling at him. He's a black officer. He's in uniform, and he says, "I'm here to protect you guys. You guys have the right to protest." And they're saying, "Kneel down, kneel down." And you know what he said? He goes, "Oh no, I'm here to protect you guys, but no, I only kneel down before God. That's nobody else." That is awesome. He tells a whole crowd of people, "Oh no, I don't kneel down before anybody except God. That ain't happening. But I'm here to protect you guys. You have the right to assemble peacefully." So I just want to give kudos to that Georgia cop. It's making the rounds on the internet.
Good, because they're going to need some help. There was another shooting this weekend in Atlanta, and
that's right.
I saw the video, man. This guy was totally justified.
Oh yeah. And they fired him, Ruben.
They fired him. No due process whatsoever. Gone.
And the chief also resigned.
Yeah,
resigned.
They probably asked her to resign. So
Ruben, it's called justifiable shooting.
Yeah.
That one's simple. That's a no-brainer. All you got to do is show the whole thing, and people can say, "What are you writing about? This guy got what he deserved."
He stole his taser gun. He was fired at the taser at the officer.
Yeah,
he can pacificates the officer. Then he's down. He could take his gun. He can shoot him. He do whatever he wants. So
that was totally justified. Again, it's just people are just pigpiling over the George Floyd arrest. Hey, Ruben, let me ask you a question. So what did you think about when I made the comparisons that a lot of the protesters are using the liturgical things in their protests? I mean, because, again, I think the knowledge of God is just in their heart.
That was amazing. I've never heard that. That's, I'm going to borrow that one from you.
That's kind of eye-opening, right?
Yeah, I never.
Give me money, offering.
Wow.
Kneel down, worship. Say Black Lives Matters. Liturgical antiphons. It's burned in our heart to worship God, Ruben.
I saw this video that was sent to me. This a black group was out there. One guy had the mic, and he was sounding like a big burly guy. He just like almost had this preacher type voice, and he had this one white woman was kneeling down, and one black man after another would step up, and she would kiss their feet. And this is what's going to happen. The whites are going to be bowing down to us and kissing our feet. Well, where's that come from too? The Bible, right? Kissing the feet of Jesus, right? Martha and Mary.
Yes, this is idolatry. This is plain and simple idolatry. This is the biggest offense in the Bible. The worst commandment to break is idolatry. And we're seeing Black Lives Matter, this movement, is acting like a quasi-divine, like their divinity. You've got to kiss my feet. That's an act of idolatry. No Christian can do that.
Yeah. Well, stand by.
God, come to our assistance.
This is not over. We have to be people of prayer, man, and action. Like Tim Gordon says, we can't just pray. We have to take action. So,
yes.
Let's just move. Let's go down.
And Ruben, one of the action is talking about it like this and giving people's encouragement and strength and forming people's consciences, saying, no, you can't bend your knee to a protester and kiss his feet. That's a sin. You can't do that, Catholics. No, in other words, shows like this are important because Catholics right now want instruction.
Yeah.
Because, oftentimes we're like a sheep without a shepherd in many places. And podcasts like these have the ability to basically give proper spiritual direction to Catholics that want to know how to navigate through all of this.
Jesse, I would venture to say that on your other radio stations, you would not be able to speak like you're speaking now.
Are you kidding? Well, that's why I'm off. That's why I've been dismissed from all of them.
So you have on your
and
resume.
I've been on all the stations in the U.S., all the Catholic networks, but they're all establishment, Ruben. I mean, they're nice people, but they just they only go like from, in the parameters of what the church says and the doctrines of the church. The catechism says this papal encyclical.
They told the line.
They won't exceed beyond that. They won't call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
They won't point a finger and say this is wrong right here. They'll just say, and the catechism says in paragraph 2087. And that's good. You have to know the church's teachings, but we also need exhortation, as St. Paul says, exhortation, encouragement. We also need to be to rebuke people that are wrong, rebuke error.
Yeah.
This is all biblical. This is all New Testament. Rebuke error, advise, admonish, counsel
spiritual works
the
of mercy.
sinner.
Yeah, spiritual works of mercy right there. Jesse, let's move on to this question. How do we know we have a soul, and how does the soul operate?
It's simple, okay? Because that's an atheist argument. First of all, for those that are believers in God and believers in the Bible tells us that we have a soul. In Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, it basically says that God breathed into Adam a soul, okay? The Greek word is a soul. And I think the Douay Rheims Bible actually uses the word soul.
Anima, yeah.
Yeah, but how do you know you have a soul? It's simple. When you go to a funeral, the body in the coffin is known as a cadaver or a corpse. Why? Because the soul has separated or departed from the body. And what's happened? The body's decomposing. The soul is what animates and gives life to the body. That's why in Latin, the soul is called anima. This is where we get the English word animate. When the soul leaves the body is no longer animated. And what are some of the operations of the soul where you can basically prove metaphysically that we have a soul? Well, here's one. The fact that you can think, that comes from the soul. That doesn't come from any biological human processes, okay? The ability to reflect or imagine or to deduce or to abstract thoughts and universal concepts, to formulate an idea, to speak. All these things come from the soul. As St. Thomas Aquinas says, he says, the soul, the anima, acts through the body. And so when our soul's gone, you'll know it because you'll be a cadaver, lifeless in some coffin.
Yeah, the next question, I'm going to preface it by saying St. Thomas talks about, I'll read the question. Can science prove the existence of God? Because I know St. Thomas, says that we can deduce that there is a God just from our own intellect. But to go further than that, obviously the Trinity and stuff like that you'd have to be taught. So Jesse, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can science prove the existence of God?
Okay, good question. St. Thomas gives philosophical arguments, and they're brilliant, by the way, and they're still used today for the existence of God. So when somebody says, can science prove the existence of God, they're asking science to do something that science was never intended for. In other words, science is able to take, for example, things that exist and kind of examine them. Pre-existent matter. They can look at it through in a petri dish or a microscope. And so science can take things that are and analyze them. But when we're talking about God, we're talking about pure spirit. So we're talking about, and science doesn't have the tools. It was never intended to be able to tell us or examine God. In other words, God's not going to, reduce himself and put himself in a petri dish or a test tube so that we can examine him and say, oh yeah, there is a God. So the discipline of science doesn't have the capacity to prove or disprove the existence of God. It just doesn't. It wasn't made for that. What does have the capacity to prove or disprove the existence of God or to give good cogent is philosophy. Okay, when you look at things the way they are, and also we can see God in some evidentiary way through the cosmos, through natural law, through what we can see, what we can study. You know, when you look at like the 7 wonders of the world, you look at the sky, the clouds, the sun. And so, I mean, there are philosophical arguments for first cause and you know, unmoved mover. But properly speaking, when somebody says, can science prove that there is a God? You're asking science to do something that it was never intended for. Make sense?
Makes sense. Yeah. Jesse, and in question 29, let's just, because we're short on time. Is it true that a world-class atheist accepts God's existence based on science?
Yeah, Ruben, most people don't know this.
Yeah.
There's a guy named Anthony Flew. He was the most famous atheist in our lifetime. Okay, he was like in his 80s. He wrote 40 books against the existence of God. For 40 years, he would just travel from one university to another, lecturing and
time.
peddling his 40 books. He was the Pope of atheism.
Mm-hmm.
A few years ago, he converted to the Catholic faith, and he wrote his 41st book. And essentially, the 41st book is why I was wrong, why my other 40 books were wrong, and why I was wrong. And Professor Anthony Flew, he's now in his late 80s. He basically wrote one book, and in one fell swoop, he rejected everything he wrote up to that point about the lack of the existence of God. Most people don't know about this. This was such a shock in the world of atheism, like for Bill Maher and others. It would be like waking up, from one night to another, and like for example, John Paul II or Pope Benedict, and we just read, Pope converts to atheism.
Yeah,
it would be that much of a shock because he was the most well-respected atheist in the world, and he actually said, here's the sentence that really, there was a good Catholic scientist that basically, Roy Varghese, that basically befriended him. They started studying together. And again, that's why it's important to know your faith. Roy Varghese, who just befriended Anthony Flew, and here's what Anthony Flew says. He says, biological research has shown me by the almost unbelievable complexity of the arrangements which are needed to produce life. That intelligence must have been involved. He says, the scientific evidence points to an integrated complexity in the human body and in the biological world. He says, like Socrates, I follow the evidence wherever it leads me, and I follow it, there is a God.
Amen. And I know Jesse covers other scientists that believe in. Jesse, I think, based on your talks this weekend, I heard you laying out a lot of names that come to that conclusion.
Oh, yeah. Most scientists are believers in God. It's unbeknownst to most atheists. Here's my book, Atheism, the Opium of the Elites. Go to my website, jesseromero.com. Ruben?
There you have it. Let's go. Let's get that book. Let's start talking about this. We have a godless society right now. Let's get churched up. Let's get prayed up, and let's get out there and fight. And stay tuned for Hands-On Apologetics with Gary Mishuda. Thanks for listening. We're out. 10-7.
Saint Faustina's Prayer for Priests. O my Jesus, I beg thee on behalf of the whole Church, grant it love and the light of thy Spirit, and give power to the words of priests, so that hardened hearts might be brought to repentance and return to thee, O Lord. Lord, give us holy priests. Thou thyself maintain them in holiness. O divine and great High Priest, may the power of thy mercy accompany them everywhere, and protect them from the devil's traps and snares, which are continually being set for the souls of priests. May the power of thy mercy, O Lord, shatter and bring to naught all that might tarnish the sanctity of priests. For thou canst do all things. Amen. Virgin most powerful, pray for us.